Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakshott. Isabel, we've got a lot to get through, so let's talk fast, right? Well, can I get your comment or your thoughts, just briefly? I don't want to go too much into this, but you've seen this interview that Rupert Lowe has given to the Daily Mail. It's been picked up by the other papers as well. He's saying that Nigel Farage acts like a messiah and needs to learn how to delegate. Rupert says that he fears he won't win his seat at the next election, and Reform are acting too much like a pressure group and not enough like a party seeking power. Your thoughts?
Really sweet, isn't it? Poor little Rupert. He's quite new at politics. He's really new in the House of Commons. And, this is what happens to people who are amateurs at politics and they become MPs and suddenly they think, yay, look at me. I think I could be Prime Minister. They all do it. Bless him. Nigel has been in this game for decades. He has devoted the best part of his life to the causes that he pursues. He has taken reform to its highest ever position, where it is in real prospect of being part or even running the next government. So I think Rupert just maybe needs to take a little step back and realise that there are 650 MPs in Parliament, and each and every one of them thinks that they could one day be a party leader or a prime minister.
Well, he's just been a guest on Harry Cole, my colleague Harry Cole's show just before this, the Drive Time show here on Talk, and his popularity was confirmed. As soon as he comes on, our viewing figures just rocket. I just think that what Mr. Farage should do, Nigel Farage should continue to do, is to follow his instincts. I just hope he doesn't get surrounded by too many advisors telling him, oh, if you want to be made.
I think there's no danger of that. I mean, Nigel has always followed his instincts, and one thing about those instincts is they are almost uniformly right.
Absolutely.
This is his most frustrating thing for the left. Yeah. He does have a nasty habit of being 100% right about things.
Exactly right. So if you're watching, Nigel, just be yourself. That's my useful advice, because that's what people love. They love Nigel Farage. Now, very quickly, we've got to get to two-tier justice in a second. But let me ask you, if you look at the front page of the Sun today, why did the Sun newspaper, part of this company, by the way, it's just a couple of floors down from here on Talk Towers. We're on the top floor. They're a bit further down. Why did they have to fight a 23-month legal battle to name an Albanian terrorist cop killer who arrived here on a fake passport but is currently free to walk the British streets? His name, now we can reveal, is mafia kingpin Maxim Cella. He's 59, and guess why he should be deported? Because he came here on a fake passport after serving half of his sentence in Albania for terrorism and murder of a cop. He went to Spain, then came here fraudulently, but he's allowed to stay at this stage because if we sent him back to Albania, drum roll, that would be against the European Convention on Human Rights. It would affect his human rights because if we sent him back, guess what? He would be at risk from rival gangsters. I don't really care. And if they kill him when he goes home, again, I don't care. But, that is an extreme example of what you and I have been discussing, well, for weeks really, these ludicrous tribunal judges who make these absurd decisions allowing paedophiles to stay because they have a right to a family life. But what I want to know about all of these cases, particularly this case, now in all other legal cases, trials, magistrates' court cases, pre-trials, they are transparent. It is part of our justice system that we know the names of the people in the dock. That is transparent justice in a free country. Why are we never allowed to name these migrants who came here illegally and end up in our tribunal courts? The Sun, to its credit, 23 months. it has fought to name this guy. This mafia kingpin. They've finally been allowed to do it. They finally won the case. But the government racked up, you know, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of pounds, defending this stupid judge's decision not to name him. Why can't we name these people?
I mean, this is absolutely endemic across our institutions over this stuff. I mean, to give an example, when a foreign criminal is being deported, if someone like that actually ever happily made it onto the back of a plane, carrying them out of our country and back from whence they came, and if they happen to start kicking off at the back of the plane, as happened, you might remember a few years ago, when a illegal migrant, well, he was actually a convicted criminal, started kicking off on the back of a flight, and all the passengers started bleating, "Oh, let him go! You know, poor guy. It's against his, you know, he's going to be."
They were unaware that he was a rapist. He was a convicted rapist.
But do you know that the teams that were trying to deport the guy were not allowed to tell the passengers that the person they were deporting was a rapist? Because it's against his
human rights.
I mean, and time and again, we come back to this phrase, you know, the human rights. Yeah. And I don't know what more it's going to take. We know Labour's never going to come out of this Convention on Human Rights. So the big question is, will the Tories ever have the guts to do so? I don't see it happening. And I think voters are increasingly realising and understanding that this awful piece of set of legislations and treaties, this supranational stuff, is actually at the heart of so many of the difficulties we're facing. It wasn't enough to leave the EU. We must also leave the ECHR. And that's always, until I think some of these cases have brought this to life, I think that debate has been lost on a lot of people. It just sounded a bit boring, didn't it? Yeah. You know, talking about Strasbourg, ECHR, what does it all mean? People now really understand what it means. It means we can't seem to get rid of convicted rapists, murderers, all sorts of awful people. We can't get rid of them because they've got a pet cat or a hamster or a girlfriend or children that they may or may not be abusing.
Yeah, and they get two-tier justice because all other defendants, all other people in the dock, not to do with immigration tribunals, these are official British courts, are named. It's sacred to a free democracy that transparency is essential in justice, in our justice system. So that's two-tier justice, and we broke this story pretty much last night, Isabel, or rather you did, that two-tier justice has now been enshrined in all its lack of glory. That new government guidance through the prism of the Sentencing Council states that criminals are more likely to avoid jail if they're, and I'm quoting this now, from an ethnic minority, a cultural minority, and or a faith minority community. So what we're really talking about is, you know, people of colour, Muslims maybe, trans people, that officially in the Sentencing Council's guidance to magistrates, these people must be treated more leniently than, shall we say, someone like me, a white middle-class, you know, middle-aged, white, heterosexual British citizen. Now, that is two-tier justice. Now, this is the aspect I'd like to talk to you about. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood, who alerted to this by Robert Jenrick, the excellent Tory Shadow Justice Secretary, says that she was very unhappy about this. And she says that she will write to the Sentencing Council to, and I quote, register my displeasure.
Right.
Listen, Shabana, you're the government. Tell them, order them to get rid of this. Order them to get rid of this. You are in power. Somebody described the approach of Labour when it fancies it to these legal issues as performative powerlessness. Just like just like Keir Starmer said, oh, I can't reveal details of the Southport murder because it would prejudice the trial. Well, today it's come out that our terrorist forces, our anti-terrorist forces, and the KC Jonathan Hall have both said, actually, you prejudice the potential trial by not revealing that information. So, you know, the Prime Minister should be able to reveal what the hell he likes. He's running the country. So they plead, oh, it's out of our hands, we're powerless, we can't... No, you're the government. So Shabana Mahmood, you know, just do something. Tell them, get rid of this two-tier clause.
Well, as part of registering her displeasure, she has also said that she will look at the possibility of introducing primary legislation, so effectively creating a new law to stop this happening. But I wish she hadn't said she was registering her displeasure. You just kind of think about how Trump would handle this, don't you?
Exactly, that's exactly what I was thinking.
He would just think, oh, this is a terrible, terrible organisation. No one's ever heard of them. What do they actually do? They spend £2 million of our money doing completely diddly squat. And when they do actually do something, it just makes things worse. So they should be top of the list to be axed at the first opportunity. But I do want to just point you out something else that I know is going to please you, Kevin, or at least maybe you might want to register your displeasure. And the boss of this organisation is none other than that female judge,
Susan Carr, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, the one that was so pompous and said that judges should not be criticised because, you know, it's not the government's place to pass any kind of judgment on the judges. It's the same woman.
Yeah, she's there. She's the Lady Chief Justice. She's basically the leading judge in England and Wales. And yes, she doesn't believe that any of us, even politicians in the House of Commons, should have the right to criticise judges in any way. I hereby criticise her in the strongest terms possible. And it's not surprising that she presided over this disgraceful piece of official two-tier justice. This is saying that if you're ethnic, or you're a person of colour, you're a Muslim, you're a trans person, that magistrates are now instructed to treat them more leniently than white middle class or white British citizens, traditional British citizens, if you like. It's an absolute disgrace.
It's just fundamentally wrong, and it's very, very corrosive, and it sends entirely the wrong message. And in fact, I imagine it might almost be illegal. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if you could mount a case that is a form of discrimination against others. It just can't be right. And voters already feel on very good basis that there is two-tier justice operationally. And now this just seems to formalise that. And, you know, I was on a debate about this earlier in the day with our colleague Ian Collins, and he had a lawyer on who did her very best to kind of defend this new guidance. You're wrong that they've just accidentally written it there. I mean, this is a result of some kind of blinking consultation.
Of course, of course.
You and I weren't consulted, and I don't think any talk listeners were consulted. Otherwise, I think there would have been quite a lot of people writing in saying, we'll have none of this, thank you.
Exactly. Can I get a quick comment from you on our terror watchdog and Jonathan Hall,
yes.
KC today, have said, now you remember back in Southport, how can we forget that summer of discontent when there were all those riots? Based on the fact that a lot of people were actually peacefully protesting about the migrant crisis. They suspected that the perpetrator had something to do with terrorism. Keir Starmer assured us that wasn't the case. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, accused Nigel Farage of spreading fake news, because Nigel said that he feared that there may be a terrorist connection. They were lying. They knew there was a terrorist connection because, of course, Axel Rudakabana was found at his house to be in possession of enough ricin poison to kill thousands of people, and a Al-Qaeda training manual written by an Islamic extremist. So there was a strong terrorist connection. The rioters, the protesters were right. Keir Starmer was lying. He was keeping secrets. Both our anti-terrorist watchdog organisation today and Jonathan Hall, Casey, said that actually when Keir Starmer said, I had to keep those secrets in order not to prejudice the trial, they've both said today, let's get this straight. Him keeping that secret could have prejudiced the trial. Simple as that. Him keeping that secret allowed misinformation to spread. That could have spread the trial. So again, the Starmer and his crew have this tendency to fall behind the cloak of what was brilliantly described today as performative powerlessness. It's nonsense, isn't it?
Well, the independent reviewer also said that the cover-up, he didn't use that word, but the secrecy, the refusal to release basic facts actually stoked the riots.
Yeah.
Now, you know what happened to ordinary people who were found guilty of stoking riots? They went to prison. And many of those people were nowhere near the scene of the riots, but they were just sent to prison because they were linked in some way to spreading misinformation or inflaming the situation. Well, that is exactly what Keir Starmer did in a different way, but he's still the effect of his actions, because he's the Prime Minister, so mightily influential, was much more dangerous than what many of those people did. So maybe he should be spending a little bit of time behind bars.
Yes, indeed. I mean, he lied to the nation, and so did the entire cabinet, and that's a disgrace, absolute disgrace.